Let's get one thing straight. Being a charismatic person doesn't make you a great leader. It might get you attention. It might even help you build relationships quickly, but attention is not the same thing as alignment. And relationships without direction lead nowhere. If you're serious about becoming the kind of leader people actually follow, not just admire from a distance, you need clarity, not charm, not hype, clarity. Most teams are not failing because of laziness or lack of talent. They're failing because they're confused. They're trying to hit a moving target. One day the priority is sales, the next day it's retention. One week the goal is innovation, the next week it's compliance. That back and forth, that's not leadership, that's noise. As a leader, you are the standard. When you're unclear, your team is uncertain. When your communication is vague, their performance is inconsistent. You might think you're being flexible or inspirational, but if you're not giving people something concrete to anchor to, you're making their job harder than it needs to be. Your number one job is to make the path forward unmistakable. Everyone on your team should be able to answer this question at any moment. What are we working toward, and how will we measure success? If they can't, that's not on them, that's on you. So how do you lead with clarity? First, stop assuming people understand your vision just because you've said it once. Repetition is not redundancy, it's reinforcement. If you want your team to remember the goal, you have to talk about it constantly. Tie it into meetings, tie it into feedback, tie it into recognition. Make the goal the drumbeat they can march to every single day. Second, define what done looks like. Don't just say, "Get this to me soon." Give them a date. Don't just say, "Make it better." Show them what better means. Leaders who are clear remove interpretation from the equation. They eliminate guesswork. They spell things out. That's not micromanagement. It's leadership. Third, communicate your expectations with confidence and empathy. You don't have to raise your voice to raise your standard, but you do have to be direct. If someone isn't meeting the mark, tell them what needs to change. Clarity in correction is just as important as clarity in direction. Your team can't improve what they don't understand, and this is where charisma can actually get in the way. Because when you rely on charm to cover for a lack of structure, you create a culture where everything looks good on the surface, but nothing actually gets done. People enjoy being around you, but they don't know what's expected of them. You're getting applause, but you're not getting results. Leadership is not about being liked, it's about being trusted, and trust is built on consistency and communication. Can your team count on you to tell the truth even when it's uncomfortable? Can they depend on you to make decisions that are aligned with the goals you've set? Can they follow your lead because they know where you're going, not just because they like you? Charisma wears off. Clarity sticks. You also need to know that clarity doesn't mean rigidity. Being clear doesn't mean you don't adapt. It means your team understands when and why something changes. You bring them along in the decision-making process. You explain the shift. You update the goals. You lead through transition instead of reacting to it. Every forming team craves structure. They want to win, and in order to win, they need rules. They need expectations, they need timelines and targets. That's what you provide when you lead with clarity. You remove obstacles not by fixing everything for them, but by showing them exactly where they're going and what's required to get there. This is what separates the average manager from a leader people actually follow. It's not just energy, it's not personality, it's clarity in vision, clarity in execution, and clarity in feedback. So if you want to level up as a leader, start here. Audit how clear you've actually been. Are your team goals written down and visible? Have you set clear deadlines? Are your ones focused on expectations and performance, or are they casual check-ins with no direction? When you give feedback, do you just talk around the issue, or do you speak directly and with purpose? You don't need to be the most charismatic person in the room. You need to be the most clear, because the leader they follow isn't the loudest or the most fun. It's the one who gives them something real to follow. Structure, vision, purpose, direction. Lead with clarity. Everything else will follow. If you want to be taken seriously as a leader, consistency is non-negotiable. You can have the perfect strategy, a killer vision, and the most talented team in the world. But if you're inconsistent in how you show up, how you communicate, and how you lead, none of it will matter. Your credibility disappears the moment your behavior becomes unpredictable. And once you lose credibility, it's almost impossible to lead with impact. Being consistent doesn't mean being robotic or never evolving. It means being dependable. It means your team knows what to expect from you, and more importantly, they can count on you to deliver what you say you will. It's about alignment between your words and your actions. When you say you value something, do you actually demonstrate it? When you set expectations, do you reinforce them? When you give feedback, do you follow up? This is where many leaders struggle, not because they're bad people, but because they're distracted, overwhelmed, or trying to do too much at once. They say all the right things in a team meeting, but then they act differently under pressure. They set goals but don't track progress. They have values written on the wall but make exceptions when it's inconvenient. That gap between intention and execution is where trust erodes. Your team is watching everything. Not in a paranoid way, but in a very real, very human way. People need to know that the person leading them is grounded. If you're showing up one way on Monday and a completely different way on Friday, they'll spend more time trying to guess your mood than focusing on their work. That's not leadership, it's confusion. Consistency in leadership starts with the small things. If you have one scheduled, don't cancel them unless it's absolutely necessary. If you say a project is due Friday, don't push it to next week unless there's a real reason. If you hold your team accountable to a certain standard, hold yourself to that same one. That's how you build credibility, not by talking about integrity, but by modeling it over and over again. Let's talk about consistency in communication. You can't afford to be vague or impulsive. When your messaging changes every week, your team stops taking your words seriously. They need to hear the same vision repeated, the same expectations reinforced, the same behaviors recognized. Repetition creates rhythm, rhythm builds trust, and trust builds momentum. And don't overlook consistency in how you treat people. Favoritism kills culture. If you're tough on one team member but let another slide because they're hyper-forming, your credibility tanks. People don't want perfection from you. They want fairness. They want to know that your leadership isn't based on emotion, but on principles. Consistency also shows up in how you make decisions. Are you reactive or are you measured? Do you take the time to gather information, weigh your options, and then stand by your choice? Or do you jump from one idea to the next, constantly shifting direction without explanation? People don't follow indecision. They follow clarity backed by confidence, and here's the thing, being consistent will feel boring sometimes. You'll feel like you're saying the same things over and over. You'll feel like you're repeating the vision too much. But while it might feel repetitive to you, it's reinforcement for your team. Great leaders don't chase novelty. They master repetition. They build trust through reliability. That's what creates stability inside a team. If you're serious about long-term leadership, not just being inspirational for a season, but leading with influence year after year, then you need to master consistency. That's where your power is. Not in big speeches, not in one-time wins, but in the daily discipline of showing up, sticking to your word, and doing what you say you'll do. Want to be a leader they follow, show up on time, follow through on your commitments. Don't play favorites, don't shift standards based on your mood, be steady, be reliable, be the kind of leader who brings calm in the chaos, structure in the unknown, and clarity in the noise. You don't have to be flashy. You don't have to be perfect, but if you're consistent, your team will trust you, and once you have trust, you can lead anyone, anywhere. Every leader loves to talk about vision, the big picture, the future. The why behind the work and vision is essential, no doubt about it, but here's the truth, a vision without execution is just a dream. It might sound good in a meeting, it might look great on a slide deck, but if you can't back it up with focused action, it won't take your team anywhere. Real leadership isn't about casting vision one time and expecting people to run with it. It's about building a structure that supports that vision. It's about creating habits, systems, and accountability that bring ideas into reality. You can't inspire people with vague direction. You inspire them by giving them something real to accomplish and showing them how to get there. Think about how many leaders spend their time chasing new ideas. They jump from one initiative to the next, constantly launching new goals, new strategies, new programs, but never sticking with any of them long enough to create real results. That's not leadership. That's distraction dressed up as ambition. You don't need more ideas, you need better execution. Execution means breaking the vision down into measurable steps. It means assigning ownership. It means putting deadlines on goals. It means saying no to things that don't align with the mission. That kind of leadership is not always glamorous, but it's what separates talkers from builders. And if you're leading a team, know this: your people don't just need to hear what the vision is, they need to know how their daily work connects to it. It's not enough to say, we want to be the best in the industry. What does that actually mean? How will you measure it? What are the specific outcomes you're driving toward? And more importantly, what should each person on your team be doing to contribute to that? When execution is missing, even the most talented teams lose momentum. Why? Because energy without direction leads to burnout. If you're constantly pushing hard but never hitting clear milestones, people start to feel like their effort doesn't matter. They get frustrated, they disengage, and they stop trusting your leadership. Execution is what turns belief into results. It's what allows your vision to scale. Without it, you're just giving speeches. But with it, you're building something that lasts. So how do you get better at execution? First, get clear on the goals, and I don't mean vague goals like increase revenue or improve morale. I mean specific, measurable, time-bound objectives. If your team doesn't know what a win looks like, they're guessing. That's on you, not them. Second, assign clear ownership. Every goal needs a name next to it. Too many leaders fall into the trap of shared responsibility, which often means no one is actually responsible. When everyone owns it, no one owns it. Be clear about who is driving each outcome, and then hold them accountable. Third, track progress constantly, weekly check-ins, monthly reviews, regular team meetings. Keep the goals visible and talked about. Don't assume your team is making progress just because people are busy. Busyness is not the same as effectiveness. Your job is to make sure energy is being applied to the right things in the right order at the right time. Fourth, eliminate the distractions. As a leader, it's your responsibility to protect your team's focus. That means saying no to things that don't serve the vision, even if they're good ideas. Good leaders know how to prioritize. Great leaders know how to cut. You can't execute well if you're constantly shifting gears. And finally, lead by example. If you want a team that executes with discipline and urgency, you have to model that. Do you follow through on your own tasks? Do you respect deadlines? Do you keep commitments? Your team is watching how you show up. Don't expect them to be excellent executors if you're not living that standard yourself. Vision is the starting point, but it's not the finish line, and too many leaders stop short. They assume their energy and enthusiasm is enough, but the teams that actually win, they're led by people who move from vision to strategy to action, and don't stop until the goal is met. You can talk about the future all you want. You can write it on a wall, put it in a presentation, or shout it from a stage, but if you don't execute, nothing changes. Execution is what proves that your vision matters. It's what gives your leadership weight. It's what earns your team's respect, not just their attention. Anyone can dream, leaders build, and the ones they follow are the ones who deliver every time. Emotions are part of leadership. You're human, you care, you're invested, that's good, but emotions can't be what drives your decisions. They can't be the filter through which you lead your team, because while emotions fluctuate, standards don't. And the leader who leads with emotion instead of standards creates an unpredictable environment where confusion replaces clarity and insecurity replaces trust. Great leaders are steady, they're firm but fair. They don't explode when things go wrong, and they don't go silent when conflict shows up. They lead from a place of structure, and that structure is built on standards, clear, consistent expectations that don't shift depending on the mood of the day. If you want to be a leader they follow, you need to create stability, and stability doesn't come from being everyone's friend. It comes from holding the line, it comes from setting clear boundaries, it comes from removing guesswork and defining what excellent looks like across your organization. When you lead with emotion, your team walks on eggshells. They wonder if today is a good day to bring something up. They hesitate to give feedback because they don't know how you'll react. They spend more time managing your feelings than performing their roles. That's not leadership, that's emotional chaos disguised as passion. Leadership is not about how you feel in a moment, it's about how you respond. When someone on your team misses the mark, your job is not to make it personal. Your job is to coach them through it using the standards you've already set. Standards allow you to separate the person from the performance. You're not saying they're bad. You're saying their behavior or output doesn't align with what's expected. And when the standard is clear, that conversation becomes much easier, much more productive, and far less emotional. Too many leaders make exceptions based on how they feel about someone. They let a high performer slide because they like them. They avoid tough conversations because they don't want to seem harsh. But in doing that, they lower the standard for everyone. And once the standard drops, credibility follows. Your team wants to know that the rules apply to everyone, not just the people you're closest to or the ones you favor. This is how you build respect. It's how you create a performance culture. You do it by refusing to make leadership personal. You show up with consistency, not volatility. And let's be clear, this doesn't mean you lead without empathy. Empathy is necessary, but empathy paired with standards is powerful. Empathy without standards is enabling. You can listen to someone's challenges and still expect them to deliver. You can care about their well-being and still hold them accountable. That's real leadership. When standards are clear, your team knows what to expect. They don't have to guess what will make you happy or what's good enough. They have a target to aim for, and they know you'll hold them to it. This gives people confidence, it gives them structure, and it frees them to do their best work without guessing themselves every step of the way. If you're finding yourself constantly frustrated with your team, pause and ask, have I truly communicated the standard? Or have I been reacting to what's happening instead of reinforcing what I expect? Emotional leadership usually comes from lack of preparation. When you're constantly in reaction mode, everything feels urgent and personal. But when you've taken the time to define the standard, most decisions become straightforward. This also applies to recognition. Don't just reward based on who you like or who worked late one night. Recognize the people who consistently meet and exceed the standard. That's how you shape behavior, that's how you create alignment, and that's how you build a team that performs without needing constant praise or micromanagement. Your job as a leader is to remove uncertainty. And the fastest way to do that is by setting the standard and leading through it. Your team doesn't need you to be emotional. They need you to be stable. They need to know that the same rules apply every day, not just when you're in a good mood. They need to know that feedback will be direct, fair, and based on performance, not personal feelings. So lead with standards. Build your culture on what's consistent, not what's convenient. The leader who sets and reinforces clear standards, calmly, confidently, and consistently, is the one they follow, not the loudest one, not the most emotional one, the one who brings order, who communicates expectations, and who doesn't flinch when it's time to hold the line. Emotions are temporary, standards are leadership. Choose the one that lasts. Leadership isn't just about hitting goals, making decisions, or driving results. That's part of it, but it's not the whole picture. The best leaders, ones who earn deep respect and build high-performing, loyal teams, are the ones who grow their people. They don't just manage, they don't just direct, they develop. They see leadership as a responsibility to build others up, not just get things done. If your team is hitting numbers but no one is becoming a better version of themselves along the way, you're not truly leading. You're managing outcomes, and outcomes matter, but they should be the result of people rising into new levels of capability, confidence, and clarity under your leadership. Your team is your legacy. How you grow them is how you scale impact. Because as your business grows, you won't be the one doing everything. You'll need people who can think, lead, and execute with excellence. That doesn't happen by accident. It happens because a leader made development a priority, not an afterthought. So, what does it actually mean to grow your people? It starts with getting to know them, not just who they are today, but who they want to become. You should know what your team members are working toward, what motivates them, where they want to grow, because when you understand their goals, you can lead with more intention. You can give them opportunities that align with their development, not just their job description. Too many leaders only focus on development when someone is underperforming, but the best leaders develop everyone, not just the people who are struggling. High performers want growth just as much. In fact, if they don't get it, they'll leave. They'll find a place where their potential is recognized and invested in. Leadership development isn't about sending someone to a seminar once a year, it's about the conversations you have every week. It's about the feedback you give in real time. It's about stretching someone slightly beyond what they think they're capable of, and then supporting them through it. Growth comes from challenge and guidance, not just encouragement. And yes, growing people takes time, it takes effort, it takes intentionality, but that's the job. Leadership isn't supposed to be easy, it's supposed to be transformational. If you're just getting through the to-do list every day without building anyone along the way, you're missing the deeper purpose of your role. You also have to let people fail sometimes. That's part of growth. You can't protect them from every mistake or correct every misstep for them. If you're constantly stepping in, you're not building leaders. You're creating dependency. Empowerment means giving ownership. And ownership leads to growth. Trust your team enough to let them struggle, then coach them on how to come through it better. The best leaders also ask better questions. Instead of always giving answers, they challenge their team to think. What do you think we should do? How would you solve this problem? What would you do differently next time? These questions develop leadership muscles. They teach people how to think strategically, not just reactively. Growing people also means giving direct, honest feedback. You cannot grow what you're not willing to correct. If someone on your team isn't showing up fully or performing at the level they could, you owe it to them to have the conversation. Not to shame them, but to sharpen them. Most people want to get better. They just don't know how, and they're waiting for someone to tell them the truth. And when you see growth, call it out, celebrate it. Recognize the effort and the progress, not just the results. That's how you reinforce development. That's how you create a culture where people want to keep growing because they know their leader sees them, not just as a worker, but as a person. Ultimately, growing your people requires you to think long term. You're not just leading for today. You're preparing them for what's next. You're building a team of leaders, not a team of followers. And when people feel that, when they know you care about who they're becoming, they will run through walls for you. So stop asking, how do I get the most out of my team? And start asking, how do I bring the best out of them? That shift changes everything. Because when people grow, your organization grows, your culture gets stronger, your results get better, and you go from being just another manager to being the leader they never forget. The best leaders grow their people. Period.